Welcome to Audience First, a podcast for tech marketers looking to break out of the echo chamber, to better understand their buyers, what motivates them, and what they hate that vendors do. It's time to unmute your mic. Are you ready? All right, welcome back to another episode of Audience First. We are in the studio today. I have Ben Siegel in the house. Ben is a special friend. More than that, Ben is a partner in crime. We're about to get into that shortly, but before that, let's welcome Ben to the show.
Hey, Danny.
How's it
How are
going?
ya?
I'm going good. And
Good.
we are in New York. We're in your hometown.
We are.
And super hot here today, super humid. So bear with me as we go through this show today.
Hometown, not an accurate representation.
Oh, damn, that's right.
I am in New Jersey.
Okay.
Had to clarify that for those who are very New York strong.
All right, so Ben, how about you tell me, who are you, what do you do, and why the hell do you do it?
Perfect. So who I am, my name is Ben Siegel. I'm the founder and CEO of the Cybernest. The Cybernest is a research platform powered by a vetted community of IT and security professionals. What we do is we help security professionals share best practices, learnings, access domain knowledge from each other. And what we do and pride ourselves on is we facilitate that connection. We facilitate that knowledge transfer for our members, which is over 450 and growing.
Amazing. Yeah. And I mean, by the time this show comes out, it's going to be much larger. And it's very exciting because I know the growth is rapid there. So well done. For those of you who don't know, I am now part of the Cybernest, VP marketing over there, and we're just doing some pretty cool stuff there. And this is an awesome opportunity to kind of drill down into some of the insights that you're finding. What are you hearing from the community? What do we got going on? But before that, I want to know, what got you to where you are today in building the Cybernest?
So previous to Cybernest, I was an early member of Gartner's emerging tech team. So I specialize on the cybersecurity side, working with more security vendors and service providers.
Yeah.
I'm not a practitioner by experience, but at that point in time, we were helping those clients across sales, marketing, product development, obviously helping them navigate the marketplace, build better products and services, and meet the needs of IT and security professionals. Through the work I was doing at Gartner, I met and networked with a ton of CISO security leaders. And that was really the early start of what became really the founding thesis of Cybernest, which was, okay, there's so many vendors in the marketplace. How do you navigate it? Where do you go to get trusted insights from your peers? What information sources do you trust? And consistently, they trusted their peers, which for those security professionals who are listening, it's not a shock. I mean, that's typically the quality source, is those who are doing the job every day, who are navigating the same problems. And it just makes sense. It has a higher trust factor. It's more relevant. And so at that point in time, it felt like it was really difficult to stay up to date. The market was constantly changing. Keeping up with the pace of innovation was very difficult. The demands of the business are constantly changing. And so you're always learning. You're always trying to stay up to date.
Right.
And it just seemed really difficult. And so at that point, there was 5 CISOs who became really kind of the early group of Cybernest. That then became 15 CISOs. We built an advisory board because they were really excited about this idea of building a community platform that was vetted, where they can leverage each other. The information being shared is by practitioners. It's through new technological ways to share that information, whether that's in discovering the information through better curation, searching for that information in one centralized space, being able to see what is already rated and
Yeah.
vetted and reviewed by those who you trust or who have a higher trust center to you. That became the foundation. And so it's now grown to over 450 members. When we launched the platform, we had an early group of 50, and it's really grown organic. People join, they share with their colleagues, they share with their peers, they maybe share content they're finding in Cybernest, which meets others who maybe don't know about us, and we've grown pretty organic in that way.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I'm pretty sure that's how we met. Well, one is because of one of the early advisors. Maybe it was Dimitri who.
Yes,
Okay.
I feel like for most who are listening to this, I found out about you, Danny, because you were all over my LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. So it's working.
Yeah,
Phew.
and you were doing things I think different, which I like to think that we're doing things different,
Yeah.
and looking at problems in a different way, and looking at solutions or solving those problems in different ways. But we actually met through Dmitry
Yeah.
Sokolovsky,
Yeah.
who's now the CISO of SEMrush,
Yes.
and he's not just a friend, but an active advisor, but also someone who was like, you have to meet Danny. You guys have similar motivations, you have similar values. You want the industry to be more authentic.
Yeah.
You want the industry to really like seek to understand. We don't work with vendors on the in a traditional sense. They're not part of the community. That's largely to keep it as a vetted group and really a fishbowl of trust. But you were working with vendors. You were
Yeah.
helping them understand, okay, here's what buyers or practitioners are going through. This is what they're navigating to build better products and services. You have to seek to understand. You have to really like learn from them.
Yeah.
They're your best source. And I felt very strongly that the best source of information on the practitioner side for those who are, protecting their organizations and trying to build their security programs are from those who are doing it
Mhm.
day in, day out in the trenches with you, not analysts, consultants, those who, this might be controversial, repackage the insights back from all of the conversations, all of maybe the data points, whether it's firsthand data points or secondary, and you don't know really if it's coming from the right source. And so I felt a very similar focus is why don't we just go to those who are doing the job, who can help us better understand how to build our programs, help us better understand how to market and sell. And we were super aligned from the start.
Yeah. And that was like a breath of fresh air because I was banging my head against the wall, trying to evangelize to people who are subscribing to the status quo or like those traditional methods, going to the analyst firms. I'm like, well, why are we going to third party intermediaries when we can just go directly to the source, the people that we actually want to, persuade and sell our products to. So it's been really exciting. I mean, it's been what, a year and a half that we've been kind of collaborating together, and finally we're in the same boat, part of the nest now, and we're working on some cool things for the vendors coming up. So, what do you think about, and like, how do you feel, or what are your initial impressions with that kind of shift in collaboration? We went kind of to like light touch crawling to like full force building out, a new division and products together.
I think any new relationship, it has to start small.
Yeah.
We started in more of I was a client to you. And you were helping us really understand what our brand position was, what our value was, what our differentiation was. And through the work, we found, the connection, we found the quality was super high. And also, if you're going to join an organization, that's a big jump that you have to be super convicted that not only can you add value, but also, is this the right move for you and your career and your family? And it's an honor to have you with us. In addition to the fact that I know we can go farther together.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm excited, jazzed, pumped up. We have a lot coming down the pike right before Black Hat. It's gonna be a ride. So thrilled to be with you in this journey. I want to shift the conversation to some of the challenges that we've been talking about, with each other in our own little echo chambers. Want to bring it out to the masses here. You come from a position at Gartner. Everybody is likely familiar with Gartner. Um, Tell me a little bit of how traditional analyst firms are helping security professionals share information and potentially collaborate. And my supplement question to that is, what are some of the pitfalls or challenges with those traditional methods of information sharing?
So, when it comes to traditional research firms, the methodology is very, very different than what we do at Cybernest. Our methodology is to be peer led, community driven. The information comes from those who are trusted, who are doing the jobs. We pride ourselves on being the facilitators of knowledge and insight and building products and features that help make that easier and streamline that. And we're also very focused on meeting the needs of all levels of security,
Yeah.
which has traditionally been something that, based on the models, have kind of siloed
Yeah.
others in the organization for a multitude of reasons, whether it's maybe only senior leaders have access or can afford the subscriptions and things like that. For us, we really are excited about building a community that all levels of security can join, both security engineers, security architects, those who are growing in their careers, in addition to those who are at the senior level and making more maybe executive decisions. When it comes to information sharing, I think in the traditional sense, information sharing is, we are going to survey the market. We're going to talk to clients and prospective. We're going to look at trends. We're going to look at what's happening, and we're going to repackage that so that you're getting sort of like an ear to the market. Is sort of how it's done traditionally. And I think the challenge with that is it removes really like the trust factor, which is you don't know where that information came from, and you don't know ultimately who who were the data points, because for a multitude of reasons, you need to keep that information anonymized. So there's definitely that, but also I think it's a challenge around relevance too. How fast you're getting the information in real time, right? When you look at traditional research methodologies, you go out and survey, or you talk to clients, you gather all that information, you organize it and synthesize it.
Yep.
And then you go out and you say, hey, this is where the market is, or this is maybe, what features and functionality, are relevant to this domain or this technology space. And it's not real time.
Yeah.
And so we see that as sort of an issue, which is, okay, if you're looking to make a technology purchasing decision, if you're looking to build your programs, maybe let's say redesign your IM program or navigate compliance in China, for example, you want to go to those who are currently doing that or have done it 3 months ago or 6 months ago. And that is why we are really focused now on continuing to build and launch our expert network, which is the ability for members of Cybernest to opt in and join our network and get paid for their knowledge and insight, in addition to help other organizations protect themselves and share their knowledge and share what makes their insight unique, because they're doing it every day, or they're seeing it firsthand. And I think, one, that's a really important step for the industry, because it institutionalizes a process that typically has been like a barter system. It's very much been, if you help me, I'll help you. And while I think that's good in some ways and it's important, oftentimes it's just misaligned, because one party might be sharing more than the other, or there's no procedure, framework, or governance over it. And so for us, how we think about it is we want to work with organizations who want to invest in the best intelligence, the best insight. We want to recruit and source the best subject matter experts from Cybernet's community and make this a formalized process so that both parties feel that there's true governance. There's confidentiality is not a concern. Being able to find who can help you when you need it as fast as possible is super important when security teams are overwhelmed and struggling to figure out, okay, how do I keep up with the demands of the business and what my team or my other industry teams are asking of us? If those teams can't solve problems quickly, navigate challenges quickly, ultimately it's slow, and then they're in a waiting period ultimately to like build their programs.
Yeah.
And so we don't want that to be the case. We want really to help those teams navigate their challenges faster using their peers, subject matter experts who can streamline that process for them.
I love it. And then, like, when I think about that model, it takes me back to the days where working in house, we would have to renew our analyst contracts for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, as a marketer trying to persuade customers to convert, I never got a seat at the table at the analyst, meetings because we had only a limited number of slots to sit in and talk to a third party intermediary. That was super frustrating to me. And so when you say we need to get closest to the actual people doing the job, that excites me, and it's why I wanted to join your mission. I mean, it's my motto. Let's get closest to the customers so that we can understand them and turn them into loyal advocates, essentially. Um, I want to kind of go off track here. We have our talking points all set up, but I want to go off track here and kind of pick your brain just a little bit before we go back to our original train of thought. Why do you think? Let me see how I can articulate this. Why do you think we're, as an industry, not a space, as an industry, the cybersecurity industry, so focused on getting on the analyst radar versus putting more emphasis and investment in our actual, like, speaking to our actual customers? Is that something you feel comfortable kind of touching base on?
I think it's, the barrier to entry is high for sure. Access is difficult. You need to really build a community. You need to build relationships, and
Yeah.
that takes time, and that's hard.
Mhm.
I do think if you kind of look at it from a different perspective, what traditional analyst firms do is they've created a formal process, a
Mm.
process where you can engage and you can share and you can ask questions and get feedback. You're getting feedback from someone who is not an active buyer, not someone who's doing the job every day, but is talking to those who are doing the job every day. And there's sort of this interest around, well, if they know about me or they know about what we do, then they'll be more inclined to share what we do with others. And for some, it works really great. For others, it's really challenging, and it's not. It can't work for everyone.
Mhm.
Just foundationally can't work for every company.
Yeah.
So I think that's the issue. I also feel like they have great brands, and brands hold a lot of weight too. There was that classic saying, I never got fired because I bought IBM. And I think there's like a lot of like uniqueness to that statement, which is at one point in time, there wasn't a lot of access to information. There wasn't a lot of avenues to do your own research to really understand the marketplace or understand how others are navigating, certain aspects of projects and their programs. And so typically we justify, well, if I have access to the trusted source or the one source that I know is doing the research or is doing the hard work, that's going to help me better justify the decisions we make inside of our company.
Hmm.
And I think that worked, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think now it's security leaders have more access than ever before. They are researching on their own. They want to be the subject matter expert, not just of the tools, but of the domains.
Yeah.
Um, and in order to do that, it requires you to self-learn. It requires
Yeah.
you to like make learning a major component of how you do your job. And so that's why I feel like what we do is more relevant now than ever, is because our goal is to make finding quality, trusted information in the industry easier and faster than ever through one platform, knowing that others have shared the information or we've sourced it from sources that we trust, and we're giving you that information not just quickly, but where the validity is higher
Yeah.
because others have rated it and shared it and said this is worth my time. And that time piece is even more critical because you don't have a lot of time to waste. You don't have a lot of time to like go down rabbit holes or
Hmm.
go in the wrong direction, not just because from a productivity standpoint, but it costs the business a lot of money. Every opportunity to like streamline that is a huge productivity and also time saver, and I think a true money saver for a lot of organizations who are trying to like rapidly build their programs.
I want to shift the I love that. I want to shift the conversation because it popped up in my head. We were sitting in a coffee shop before this, and you had mentioned that there's still a little bit of, you know, not a barrier. What was it that you were mentioning about, practitioners still being hesitant to kind of share and even network with some of the peers? I mean, we have the Slack communities and we have the events and all that kind of stuff. But why do you think, security professionals are still a bit hesitant to connect and collaborate with one another?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a security like specific challenge. I think it's like a human nature
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Like I think people naturally are a little bit more potentially extroverted versus introverted. Some folks are, maybe you know, nervous around what other people think. And in a domain like
makes
security,
sense.
it's very technical. It's very almost scientific in a way.
Yeah,
And so there's not one way to do security. So the way you feel like it should be done might be controversial, might be like questionable to others.
yeah.
And so typically, kind of like the loudest voices rise to the top. I also think just open platforms, whether it's Slack or even LinkedIn, it's everyone. It's if you write a piece of content or you share your knowledge, let's say in a LinkedIn article, yeah, you're sharing that maybe to get feedback from your peers, maybe to like help the industry, but those who are consuming it might not always be the people that you want feedback from or
Right.
or really um, bring you value.
Yeah.
And so vetted communities are one by nature an easy way to sort of make that a possibility. The other thing too is like there's a lot of noise. Like it's really hard to keep up with Slack channels. There's so many messages, and you might miss things, or you kind of have to be at the right place at the right time. And so there's also a discoverability challenge. There's really kind of a filtering challenge as well. So we think about that as how do we turn peer-rated research and community-based research into really an easy search experience where you can search within our platform. We curate based on tags and metadata, and that helps, right? When you're overwhelmed and there's so much going on and you need the information quickly, but you don't know where to get it or how to find it. And I think that's also a big challenge as well. With more information than ever, it's like there's too much.
Yeah. So you mentioned the challenges and some of the barriers of vetted communities, but what you know y- you've established relationships with a lot of professionals in the security space. The community is 450 plus strong, and what we're hearing from our members is that the Cyber Nest is one of the more trusted spaces that they can go to for information and peer community. Um, but what in talking to professionals, what is kind of the emerging theme or challenge that keeps rising that requires them to use something like the Cybernest or a peer vetted community?
So consistently when I talk to members, and I think you see this in a lot of other places too, like, people are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like if I can simple it down to one thing, practitioners are overwhelmed.
Mhm.
That then turns into like what everyone says that, the B word, right? I'm burnt out.
Mhm.
And I think what's underlying that is, okay, if my team members are overwhelmed or our, security leaders are overwhelmed, then we have a challenge with attracting and retaining talent. We have a challenge with keeping, um, professionals engaged. People need to find what are their motivations, what are their passions. Are they intrinsically motivated? Are they extrinsically motivated? Those are super important qualities for sure. But I think as a problem, it's attracting and retaining talent is an issue. And we believe, and when I talk to members, they agree, if you give them the ability to share knowledge and share insight, and you give them access to information that helps them do their jobs, they're not running into roadblocks as much. And when you run into roadblocks all the time, it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
And you don't feel the wins. You don't feel like things are moving well. You
Mhm.
constantly feel like you're kind of like, two steps behind in the race. And so our metric of success is, are our members finding relevant information that helps them in a current project?
Yeah.
Or helps them learn and stay up to date in the industry? That's one important metric for sure. The other is if they don't know what to do or they don't know, how to streamline that problem, how do we help them connect them to someone who does in a
Right.
really fast and formalized way where both parties feel like, they have the opportunity to share privately and confidentially, that we vetted that person so that, they know that problem or that project, um, and they can solve it really quickly. And I think you probably see that in your work too, where it's like you, especially like in, starting a new company and building a business, like there's a lot of micro learning, of
Yep.
course, like you don't know everything. So in order to be successful, you kind of have to like learn it, own it, and like have a win and then move on to the next. Otherwise, it's like, wait, I'm not having a lot of wins right now. Maybe
Yeah.
this isn't for me. Maybe this isn't the right job for me. Maybe this isn't the right industry for me. And there's a lot of problems, but I think that's definitely one of them.
Mm. What's the risk of suffering from that, and not dealing with the problem? I know maybe it's a redundant question and blatant. The answer is pretty blatant, but like, what could happen if that's not taking care of the talent problem, right?
Yeah, well, I think one is you don't have a really like a strong culture,
Yeah.
and culture is super important, especially like everyone says security is a team sport, and if that team doesn't feel like they're growing, they're sharing, they're learning, they're leveraging each other, then I think that becomes really really difficult. I think from a CISO perspective, that means team members leaving the
Yeah.
organization, and think about all the time and energy you put into like training those people and bringing them up to speed on how the organization operates, and then when they leave, you have to bring someone else in, and there's a ramp up time.
Yeah.
So it's 100% an issue from a productivity standpoint. It's a big issue from a cost standpoint for sure. And if you can't solve that burnout issue or that being super overwhelmed or feeling like you're making a meaningful impact too, I think that's another thing. Like we all want to feel like we're making an impact in the work that we do. If you don't feel that every day, then how long will that last? It's not very long.
Yeah. So the Cybernest started out as a free community for practitioners of all levels, which I think is fabulous because, like, we see a lot of vendors and we see a lot of communities focusing solely on the CISO. And so when we decided to join forces and also build out the division for the vendors and doing qualitative research with experts, what was a requirement for me was breadth of roles. Like, I just don't want us to only focus on the CISO, though, sometimes they hold the purse strings as well as the CFO. And, you have to understand the whole buying committee, essentially, right? You need to understand the end users, the people, the boots on the ground, right? Um, so you started out as the community. What happened that made you say, okay, we need to develop a product for security teams? Because right now we just launched the Teams platform, which has many more features and collaboration tools for security organizations within enterprises. Take me through that kind of story.
Yeah. So Cybernest started, to your point, free community, free platform. We built a lot of features for free for a multitude of reasons. One, we really wanted to give security leaders access to information to protect their organizations. We didn't want there to be a lot of barriers. We didn't want to silo um, anyone. And so that was really the start. It also allowed us to really figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working, what do people want next, what are we really solving for? At the start, it was access to quality information. And then as we started to really talk to members around, okay, yes, we're giving you access to the information, but is it helping you like do your job? Is it helping you like streamline a project? How do you use the information? That's really where it became interesting because members would share, well, I love the information, but I don't have a lot of time. Like I need better insight or better like digests of the information. So, we launched a weekly newsletter that curates, newly rated content, new content in the platform, so that members can really ultimately get that information quicker. We launched summaries as a free part of the platform using, OpenAI. So essentially, you can get really great quick summaries of long form content.
Hmm.
Maybe you don't have a lot of time, and so you maybe have 10 or 15 minutes, and you want to like learn quickly and continue to stay up to date. And then as we started to realize really the power of some of the new technologies, whether it's AI, machine learning, and things like that, we realized like, whoa, we can turn the knowledge base into a co-pilot. We can make this very large knowledge base something that you can ask a question, get an answer. You can chat with documents. We pre-populate questions for you, so maybe you don't know what to ask, and so you can quickly learn. So kind of like micro learning, continual development. That's a paid feature for teams. We also felt it was super important for teams, not just or individuals, not just to find the information, but then share it with their teams.
Yeah.
A lot of people like send a link in a Slack channel or post on LinkedIn, but you don't know why that person shared that information.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of nuggets of like quality around why someone you trust shares something with you, but there's not a lot of ways to actually like document that or formalize it.
Yeah.
And so that then turned into, okay, Cybernest is free as a private instance. Think of like a community edition, but we want to turn the platform into a private workspace for an organization who ultimately want to keep a lot of that information private. They want to document best practices. They want to share as a team. And when they share as a team, ultimately, they're doing so because the people on their team they trust the most,
Yeah.
more than the open community and more than their peers. It's, there's always a one step in advance of trust, right?
Hmm.
And now we're really focused on building workflows for teams around how they find information, share it, tag each other in documentation, build essential activity feeds so you can see what's happening across the team,
Yeah.
across projects. Ratings and reviews in our platform in a team context are private, so teams can share knowledge. And you're spending so much time and energy hiring the best people, leverage them to actually share with each other and
Right.
give them easy ways to do that. So I think it was a little bit of a technology gap, but also just a formal workflow
Yeah.
around how teams actually share information, share knowledge, how they streamline projects. Some use Confluence and other tools and things, but we really wanted to bring all those things into one.
Yeah.
And you can then tap into the knowledge base. So, it's always on, it's live for you all the time. And it
Hmm.
doesn't put so much pressure on your team to have to like do that yourself. You can leverage the global community that's sharing information and, we source as well, and quickly pull that into a workflow for your team and start using it.
Yeah, you mentioned workflow, which I think is powerful, but you also mentioned the micro learning, so smaller kind of core or nuggets of information that are contextual. Because I mean, the thing that I see, um, you know, in looking at how we consume data or qualitative intel, it's like we spend so much money uh, for those reports or for those panels or surveys, and then for the most part it gets looked or glossed over and just sits on the shelf collecting dust. And so when you're chopping up or chunking, I think that's a cognitive psychology term, you're chunking information, it's much easier to retain that information, process it, retain it, but then actually use it to your benefit for the organization. And so that's why, when I distill those insights or give those little nuggets of information, it resonates, right? And people are actually using it, right? It's easier to process and figure out how can I actually apply it to the business. So I mean that Copilot feature is killer. And the fact that there are relevant questions also chatting with the documents, I thought was a phenomenal move. I'm super excited to see how teams react to that, and actually looking forward to seeing the impact it has on the organization too, from a security perspective. So we don't have any really concrete use cases quite yet, but I'm really eager to see how that pans out in the future. Where do you see kind of the cybernest going, or in general the space of peer-led information sharing versus the traditional way of doing things, using analyst firms and the Slack groups and all that kind of stuff, a more tailored, focused, process-oriented approach moving in the next 5 years?
I mean, I think we got our work cut out for us.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It requires a ton of different motivations, incentives to align, and the right models, in addition to the right tools to do it well. I truly believe that it's the future of the space. It is, especially for security, the only way that you're going to really get the highest quality information or the highest relevance, because you're making a decision based on something someone you trust has shared it with you.
Yeah. Yep.
And, I think this has been happening. This is not a new thought, but I think it's traditionally happened in very private circles, which puts a lot of pressure on security leaders to build those networks and have those relationships. And especially those who are growing in their careers, like they just don't have time, the same time window to build those relationships. Those will never go away. You're still going to go to the people that you trust, the people who, maybe are in a private WhatsApp group where you can pose a question or ask someone, hey, can you give me 30 minutes or an hour?
Yeah.
But it's not formalized, and it's not institutionalized in a way that I think could really make a huge impact for organizations who are trying to move fast and move really in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I biasly believe that peer-led communities, peer-led information services businesses are the right model.
Okay, I'm gonna bring a question out from left field because I saw this post on LinkedIn from Clark Barron. Our friend Clark Barron posted about communities and how people build communities and then they all of a sudden there's like a bait and switch and then pitch. What, in your opinion, is the true definition of a security community?
So I think there's a multitude. One is the true essence of a community is where the members really drive the value.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best metric. There's also that other word, which I think is also relevant, which is audience.
Yeah.
So some things are audiences. In some ways, we have an audience. In other ways, we have more of that community element for sure around sharing information and validating it. We don't have chat, so we're not a core Slack channel in that sense, where it's free flowing, but we're really focused on the research and content side, on helping teams make better decisions. We use a community element to do that because we feel like that is the highest quality.
Yeah.
The problem I think now is, there's so many avenues, there's so many groups,
Yeah.
and naturally, I think because of COVID, people kind of jumped to like online communities and jumped on into WhatsApp groups because they didn't have other avenues. And obviously, events went away, and that was largely in security where people kind of shared, where they connected, where they built relationships, and it's coming back, and I think it's in a really good, strong way. But you can't wait for your next event.
Yeah.
Like you need to have it in real time, or have ways that you can get that information when you need it, not waiting till RSA or Black Hat or the ISACs, which are incredibly valuable, but they're spaced out, and it might not be when you need it.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, the term community has become a fad and a buzzword. And, unfortunately, those who are trying to persuade audiences to buy are leveraging the term community to capture some interest, because when you think of community, yes, there's that element of trust. It's a closed space. By definition, I think it's a closed space where it's vetted, your own people, your peers. And so vendors are starting to use that term to drive and pull some interest from the practitioner space, and unfortunately are underwhelming those said practitioners, and using that as a method to sell to them. They don't understand that community is hard to manage, to govern. The point of that community, to your point, is to create value through the members, and that is hard ass work. That's hard ass work. I mean, even if you don't moderate it, but you build it the way we're doing it, so difficult. And I don't think it's a tactic for a less mature team. I think it's for a tactic that has to be implemented by a very mature team that has the resources to manage it, because it's a difficult task. I just wanted to put that out there because I saw this thread and I'm like, oh God, how much?
I think it's also just there's so much bias, right?
Yeah.
So, we're not owned by another entity, like we're our own entity, and so that gives us the flexibility and the autonomy to build the community that we want to build, and it's not influenced by any other factor. We're in control, and that's super important. Like the content you see in Cyberness, we're not being paid for. We don't do vendor sponsorships. We don't do content syndication. The reason why you're seeing content is because it's earned the trust from others. The only way to do that is obviously as, kind of our own entity. I think where vendors look at it, kind of take it the wrong way is, well, if you're in a vendor community, ultimately their goal should be to bring value. They're bringing value because they want you to buy their products and services. And I don't think they're wrong in building that community. But if they call it a community, they should be connecting their clients to each other. They should be connecting their clients to prospective clients so that their clients are helping prospective, or prospective are helping like their existing clients. And I think what's happened is, and this isn't always the case, but vendors are kind of afraid to have clients talk to each other. And I think that is a flawed thinking, because if the product is great and people are seeing a lot of value, that is your best way to like show it in a trusted way. They're already going to talk about your product in other channels, so don't be afraid of it. If anything, and you and I agree on this, like, so much, is you probably should figure out what's working or what's not working much faster.
100%.
Like, don't hide from the fact that maybe there's parts of your product that maybe is not working. And once you want to know that, like, really quickly, so you can start to solve for it, because we all have to manage like our time. We all have to manage resources. We should be devoting all of our time and resources into like focusing on the things that are improve. Not siloing. Well, it worked here, it didn't work here, or I don't want to connect these two together because they might talk about something that we don't have control of. We don't want to lose control. I personally believe it's you might see quick success or you might be able to grow the business, but at some point you're gonna hit a bottleneck, and it's because of that.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. We're heading towards the end of the session, and as always in every episode, I stress that this is a obviously bi-directional conversation. So if there's any questions you have for me, by all means, I grilled you enough today and in the last year and a half. So, I mean, we're here to have an open discussion. So anything you want
Yeah.
to.
So, what are you most excited about with the things that we have planned, the things that we're focused on?
Well, first, I'm excited to work with you because you're just great peoples, and my motto is "Don't work with schmucks," and you're very far from being a schmuck. So I'm super happy about that. You're a great person. You're smart. You're fun to work with, and open to that feedback, which is really exciting. And I love that you've trusted trusted me and my recommendations throughout this past year. I'm also really excited about the fact that we're building out a new division that's going to help vendors get closer to the real practitioners and buyers in this industry because it's hard to do. Um, there is a method to the madness, and that's I think we're building that out. And to your point, you talked about processes, and I'm all about processes when it comes to interviewing buyers and interviewing practitioners. So to be able to do that at scale through a product is super exciting for me because it's all like audience first. Everything that we've been a service company, and it's hard to scale those services. It's much easier to give people the product and have them do it themselves, which is essentially what should be happening, but it's not. I don't need to be the person to do that for them. They should be doing it on their own. And if there's a way for us to facilitate that for them through a product, it's just like it's amazing. And I wouldn't say most importantly, but what's super critical here is the fact that these experts who are actually opted in want to help, which is so thrilling. I mean, you think about a young cybersecurity marketer or SDR or account executive. They're coming in and maybe with the assumption of, I'm a little intimidated to talk to to a practitioner. That also should not be the case because that's a wrong assumption. In my journey, speaking with customers and prospects, they've been nothing but welcoming in providing their input, feedback. And I think that's something that even the youngest marketers and the more veteran marketers and sales professionals are understanding more and more because we're showing them that these professionals are ready to have the conversation. We're seeing it more prevalent in conversations on LinkedIn and in our community through the podcast. So those are kind of the three and a half things that I'm super thrilled about. And just growing and learning more too is something that's I'm always looking forward to because I'm deeply curious. So
I love that. If you could give marketers one immediate change to make, what would it be?
oh, one immediate change. It's hard to choose one. Um, I would say, I would stick to what I always tell them and just stop, get out of that imposter syndrome and just unmute the mic and just start having the conversations. It can be scrappy in the beginning. You'll get better at it,
Yeah.
I thought I had it nailed in the beginning, but I had no clue. Like, I got so much better over time just because I finally stepped out of my comfort zone and literally, got on the mic and started talking to people and figured it out by myself. Now we have that methodology
Yeah.
built out and are going to share it, but just start.
Yeah. I think the methodology is probably where you and I have connected so much on,
Yeah.
which is I think one of the issues you asked early on, like what are issues in the marketplace or in the industry? It's typically the practitioner has been sort of the product to be sold.
Yeah.
They're not part of the value creation. So whether it's an event organizer who fills a room with 100 security leaders and each of those people have sort of like a value.
Yeah.
And yes, there are reasons why that is, and to put on that program, their sponsors and things. But I always wondered, well, if you made those people in the room part of that value creation, or you align incentives for them, maybe the conversation would be 10 times better,
Yeah.
or maybe they would contribute more because they feel like, there's a reason why they're there, and that there's an expectation where, if we're going to bring you to this, or we're either going to pay you or we're going to incentivize you in different ways. It doesn't need to be always monetarily,
Yeah.
that you're going to bring your A game, you're going to share. And so we feel very strongly, I know you do too, that we're not going to do anything at Cybernest that makes our members a product.
Yes.
We don't sell user data. We don't, we're not trying to sell on clicks and things like that. If we work with vendors, which we plan to, we're going to do it in a manner where our members are in control, not just in what they opt into, but more importantly, that they're, they're compensated for their knowledge, their insights, their experience. And when we talk to members, they're so excited about that because they're like, wow, I know I can actually help companies make better products and services. And, it's not misaligned. Like there's no bias. Like, I have a seat at the table and I'm part of, building a better product for the industry. And yeah, are there going to be ways that happens organically? For sure. But it should be a formalized process.
It has to be, because, and I talked about this just recently with the folks over at Anixia. One of the themes that we talked about was that security now more than ever is equally as relevant to the business as it is technically, like a technical thing. It's a business thing, not just a technical thing. And part of that business is, what are the tools that we're using? How are we implementing it in the organization? How's it impacting our organization? What's the ROI of that? And so, like, the practitioner has to be part of the innovation process, because that innovation is impacting their business. They need to know how to articulate the technology that they're using to the business, to the stakeholders. And if they're not part of the building process, then there's going to be a huge gap in how they're impacting the business.
Yep.
And so that's why I think this model in getting, the vendors to speak with the actual practitioners through a qualitative approach is so critical over the, general, like, let's book a meeting and pitch you. It's not about pitching. It's about working together to figure out how to better the product so that the security in the business is bettered.
Or the only metric of success is, did this become a deal or not?
Yeah.
Whereas, okay, it becomes a deal and they become a customer. Are you asking the tough questions, which is, are they seeing value?
Yeah.
What do they like about the product? What don't they like about the product? How do they track metrics of success?
Yes.
Do you know what the metrics of success, i.e. the vendor, do you know what that good looks like? Because oftentimes they're not the subject matter expert of your tool or of your space. So, oftentimes clients don't know, and they're leaning on you. So you have to ask the hard questions. Otherwise, we're afraid to ask, and then we think we're building the right things. We think we're bringing value, and then we're not. And then we're wondering, okay, why are we not growing, or why are customers not sharing?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to rock the boat. I always like to say, like we would always say at Gartner, like, tell us our baby's ugly.
Yeah.
Which is scary, but it's super important.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I love it. We're at the end of the session. Any last thoughts, parting thoughts for the audience today?
No, this was awesome. And, we don't get many avenues to like meet in person. So, we had good pizza yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
You got your chicken parm.
Yes.
We're
all set.
You can't be in New York without good Italian. So.
Oh, it was amazing. Where can people find you?
LinkedIn. If you're interested in joining Cybernest, go to thecybernest.com, apply to be a member. It takes 5 minutes to complete the application. If you're an internal security professional, a midsize or large enterprise, or you previously had that experience, maybe you do part-time or full-time consulting, we'd love to welcome you. Apply, join, start accessing the platform.
Amazing. Ben, pleasure as always. You'll be back. We will have you
We got
back.
to do this more.
We will. And I think we covered all bases there.
If you're going to Black
Oh,
Hat,
yeah,
we're
Black
doing
Hat.
a cocktails and conversation. We're bringing members of Cybernest. 2 members will give a talk. We'd love, if you're not a member, to join us, enjoy, and step away from the shenanigans to meet others. And we'd love to host you.
100%. Air conditioning is going to be awesome over there.
Yes.
All right, Ben, thanks for coming. And that has been another episode of Audience First. We are out.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Audience First. If you like what you've heard, feel free to follow or subscribe to Audience First on Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast streamers.